Chili is the trusted partner for pairing, matching, and data enrichment, helping companies hire better talent faster. Chili help recruiters connect candidates with jobs by enhancing the candidate experience, simplifying the hiring process, reducing hiring costs, and saving time and money. For more information, visit www.rchili.com.
What great ideas are so close within your grasp? Seeing other points of view, anticipating change, considering multiple possible turnouts, acknowledging uncertainty, searching for compromise. We're going to talk about how to get over those limiters of innovation so that you can extract better thinking from yourself and your team. So let's talk about how to win the future.
In this episode, I'm speaking to Gail Porter, TV presenter, model, author, and campaigner, about her rise in 90s media scene, her battles with alopecia, and her mental health, and how she's now using her story to advocate for others. Welcome back, everybody, to the Marketing Rules podcast, and it is my pleasure to welcome on board today Gail Porter. Gail, so if we go by your Wikipedia page, which is never a source of truth at the best of times, you know, it's TV presenter, actress, actor, author, model, campaigner, stand-up comedian. Have I missed anything there? It's just, you know, it's quite broad, you know.
It's go to the doctors, isn't it? They're going, you've got this and you've got that. And I was because every time you speak to someone now, they've got something, and I was like, I don't even care what's written about me in Wikipedia. I don't look. But there was one that I did a talk recently, and there was an elderly man, a security man, and I went, "Hi there, I'm coming in." He went, "Oh, I've just Googled you," and I was like, "Oh." Because I think about the pictures like back in the day, and I was like, oh my God, I feel quite sick. Don't Google me, please. He's like, what do you do? And I went, I don't know.
That's quite a nice place to kick off, though, right? I mean, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was kind of your journey in the media industry, and do you look back on that kind of, because there's a time in the kind of the 90s where you mentioned, you know, if you do kind of Google you, which is kind of a weird thing to do anyway, right? But do you look on that in fondness? Do you look on that with kind of, is it cringy? How do you feel about that kind of, that time?
I'm kind of, I don't really think about it. Well, I do think about it because people bring it up quite a lot, which is fine, but I've never Googled it. And I went through a stage of doing magazines in the 90s. So you'd be working on Top of the Pops or The Big Breakfast, and all the other people seemed to be doing magazines. So I just sort of went along with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm in my 20s thinking this is great fun. We were all, I mean, it was a good time to be alive. And then suddenly, you know, you're getting pulled in by all these blokes, misogynists going, no, we're not going to use that picture, or it's not going to be anything major, or it's nothing. And then you wake up one morning and your arse is on the Big Ben and you think, oh, I think I've been done over here.
So I mean, I wanted to kind of steer clear of that, but you kind of brought it up, right? Because I don't want to kind of dig over it. But was that something that did you not agree to that then? Was that not something that you?
No.
No.
Well, I knew I did the picture, obviously. And we were all just mucking about. My mum was there, and she was like, "Oh, you've not got much clothes on." But we were all having a laugh. We were having a drink. They said they might use it on the cover. They're probably going to use it on the cover, but I didn't get paid for it. And then the next thing I saw, it was on the news, and I was in my flat I was near Kilburn at that point, and I was on my own, and I saw the news, and I was like, oh my God. And I opened the front curtains, well, the front blinds, and I just saw these people outside, and I was like, oh shit creek. And then my mum phones me, and she's like, what have you done? And I was like, I didn't know. And Grandpa phones me, and he was fine. He's going, it's all right, I've seen your bottom when you were a baby. I was like, yes, slightly different, Grandpa, but thanks for that. So it was all a bit weird and strange.
And I also guess at that point there's no one to kind of coach you to say, look, this is the pressures that someone in your position can be put through. There's no one to there's no support, right? Kind of infrastructure, I guess, at that time to a certain extent. Not necessarily family, but just people on set and you know that kind of thing. Those kind of coordinators you get these days.
I think people on this on sets, because they were getting away with murder, I mean, they were getting away with everything. We were going on trips. I went with Maxim magazine to Budapest. I don't even know what we were doing. It was a competition, and these guys entered, and it was me, George Best, Eddie Irvin, the race
Yeah.
car driver, and a comedian, and that was the prize. So 250 blokes won a weekend away with us. So I just went with it. I was like, my God, I'm hanging out with George Best and doing what are we doing?
Yeah.
So it was just, it was a whirlwind, and I'm not a very sensible person. So I was just going with it and enjoying it, then taking the backlash. But there wasn't, I mean, I'm sure if I'd gone down the right routes and got an agent and stuff, but I was just having an absolute ball. When I think about it now and all the worries that we've got now, I mean, yes, I was treated badly, but we had an absolute riot, and a lot of it was my fault as well for just going along with it, thinking that everybody was doing things. And I didn't see any harm in anything, but it wasn't until they were using images and you're not getting paid, and then suddenly, because people were going, I bet you were you had loads of money. I was like, I didn't get paid for that, didn't get paid for that, didn't get paid for that. So, and then that's when you suddenly think, oh yeah, I've been screwed.
And I mean, and getting into kind of media and TV and that, was that always what you wanted to do? Was that kind of like an ambition, or was it just kind of just happened?
It just happened, really. I worked behind the scenes for a very long time. I was a big fan of comedy, so I used to write to the comic strip people. Peter Richardson, he had a place in Soho, and I used to think that I was writing really funny letters, and they just ignored me, obviously. And then there was one time I came down to babysit for a friend of mine who's a director. So I mean, I did all the camera assistant, sound assistant,
Yeah.
working in the tape room, making teas, making coffees, babysitting for directors, whatever. Not for the directors, but for the kids. But and then I went down to see my friend, and he's like, "Come to the Groucho Club." And I'd heard about this Groucho Club, being a wee person from Edinburgh. And he's like, "Come on, you might get some contacts and get a bit of work or something." And I went in, and Peter Richardson was there, and he's quite a quiet man. And my friend has had a few drinks, and he's like, "Go and just say hello."
Mhm.
And it was afternoon, so I went, "Hello there. I'm not mad, or I'm not weird." When someone says I'm not mad or I'm not weird, you just instantly think they're
Yeah.
weird and mad.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he looked at me and he went, "Are you that Scottish girl that's been sending us stuff?" Because I'd sent pictures of me in photo booths like that, stuff like that. And he said, "Come to the office." And he took me over to the office round this. It was just literally on the same street, Dean Street, and everybody was, all his little team was in there, and there was my letters up on the pinboard, and everyone just stopped and looked at me and they went, and I was going, "I'm not mad. I'm not mad."
Mhm.
And I got a job as a runner. They gave me a job working with Stephen Fry and Keith Allen and stuff. It was for a radio show. It was only a little thing, but I really enjoyed myself. So I hadn't gone out. I just wanted to work behind the scenes. And then I
Yeah.
got asked to audition for something by another friend of mine. And I just remember like thousands of people turning up, and I thought this was ridiculous. And it got down and down and down. And then eventually I got the job on kids' telly. But I think it's probably because I worked behind the scenes. I wasn't too phased.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wasn't bothered.
you'd kind of cut your teeth in kind of in the
Yeah, exactly.
slightly old school way, isn't it? I mean, you hear a lot of people who start as runners and that kind of thing, and then and move into that. And I suppose
Good to go about it because you
yeah,
learn along the way. Yeah. Sorry
yeah.
to interrupt.
No. And I guess though that it sounds quite tough though, right? Because whenever I talk to people who've done that, runners don't get paid much, if anything, right?
I
And
didn't get
you're seen as just kind of like you're doing it because it's a means to an end potentially at some point, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get paid for a very long time. So I used to like our edit suite was open sort of 24/7 sometimes to do adverts. And it was back in the day when, they're all smoking inside in the edit
Right.
suite. I'd be sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning. They'd call me in and go, "Could you get us a bottle of whiskey and some fags? And can you get a pizza?" And you didn't think twice. You just think, right, where can I go? It's Scotland. We're gonna get drink anywhere. And you were running around doing all that. And then they're going, "Oh, could you go and be a camera assistant up in the mountains?" So you're carrying like, the
Mhm.
tripod and all the bags, and the camera guys are away. And then they're going, "Could you just drive a bus, a big my favorite, the big white lorry thing that we had to take our equipment everywhere." They go, "Could you just drive down to London and pick up some lighting and then drive back?" I'm only 5'1", and so I'd be sitting in this massive white lorry, just sort of like coming into service stations with all these big truckers and me going, "Do you have any fruit salad?" Everyone else is having Yorkies, yeah. But yeah, so I just did everything, and you just took it because it's funny. my daughter's obviously working now because she's 22, and she's saying, this person wants me to do this for free for the afternoon. And I said, unfortunately, you're going to come across that, but have the bollocks to just say no after a
Yeah.
while, because I just did it and did it. But I was having a ball. I lived in Edinburgh. There was lots of lovely people I was working for, but I know in London it's a lot different, and a lot of people are so desperate to work in certain industries, whether it's
Yeah.
music, and so people have got their pick of
Yeah.
people that will do it for free, especially if they live in London, because they can go back to their parents' house or whatever. But if you're coming from out of London, I was literally sleeping on sofas and anywhere I could stay just to have a bit of fun and go and do some work.
And you'd hope that it's kind of that the industry has changed a little bit since then, right? So that you would hope that it's moved on. Um,
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't get any of the magazine stuff these days.
no.
I mean, no, that wouldn't happen. Um, I
A
didn't even
lot, a
get a
lot of
copy.
them don't. A lot of them don't even exist anymore, anyway. So for a start, do
No,
they?
I
You
never
know.
think
So
they're all gone, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah,
But I never even got sent them, because I thought, oh, because I'm not going to go into a shop and go, oh, excuse me, can I get that picture of me with my bum hanging out on it? It would just look weird. So I thought they'll send me a copy. So not only did I not get paid, I never got to see them until someone bought a copy and let me see. And I was like, oh, that's quite, doesn't even look like me. Airbrushed to hell. But no, so that's one thing that doesn't
yeah,
happen. But TV wise, it seems to have gone very kind of. I just watch Netflix, or I watch
yeah,
Paramount, or I don't really know what's on TV now, because there's nothing that I think, oh, I quite
yeah,
like watching Gogglebox, because you get sort of a roundup of stuff, and then I feel like you're sitting in on a Friday night with your mates, and I thought,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, yeah, that's
yeah,
quite meta. It's quite meta, though, isn't it? Gogglebox is watching people watch TV, basically. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it is, yeah, I
Um,
like it. It's quite enjoyable.
and kind of that period in the 90s. I mean, there was a lot going on. We're of a similar age, right? So I remember that kind of that time of kind of growing up with quite fondness. I
Oh, you look
remember.
very young on it.
Oh, thank you. 48, so I'm kind of I'm getting there. So,
But yeah,
but
I'm
you know,
old.
I remember the kind of the Britpop and all of that and kind of that explosion in kind of British culture, right? British culture seemed to be everywhere, right? We kind of ruled the world at that point. But then we kind of move into the kind of the 2000s and talk to me about that kind of that period in your kind of work, because that's the point where things seem to kind of change for you a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a bit. So I remember for the year 2000, yeah, I was doing the big breakfast for the whole welcome into the new year and everything. And so that was weird, being on TV when everybody is, but we were partying, but not really properly partying. So we were doing a
Mm,
program. And then it was, no, let me think. So my daughter was born in 2002, and my hair started falling out when she was one or two. So
mm.
2003, 2004, is that right? Yeah. Um, yeah, hair started falling out, so everything just started to go completely wrong. And I'd been in a relationship with someone, and that had fallen apart, and I was sort of in limbo. What do I do? And it was getting more and more. It seemed like the fun just stopped.
Yeah.
And then with my hair thing, everyone just completely treated me differently. Um, and I thought, because it's alopecia, for anyone that
Yeah.
doesn't know, I've got alopecia. And so I was away in America working, looking for dead people. Um, I did a program called Dead Famous. So we went out to America to look for like Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, you know, that sort of stuff. And then it just kept coming out in patches. And I couldn't quite understand what was going on. And I thought, well, maybe it's hormones, maybe it's something. And then within 4 weeks, I was completely bald. And I thought, wow, okay. So I thought, I'm just going to have to. I was so scared. But
Mhm.
because we were in Vegas filming, you could get away with anything. So we were like queuing up to go to a nightclub, because everybody who was working with me were so kind. Because I just wanted to cry and just crawl under the duvet, or just, oh. And they said, no, come on, we're going out, get makeup on. And we got into a queue, and they were like, are you guys in a band? And I went, yeah. So I think they thought it was kind of some sort of look, and so we got in, and yeah, it was fine. And then, but it wasn't until the travel home that I was sitting on my own. I was crying, thinking, "My gosh, what if my daughter doesn't? She's not going to recognize me, or what if I scare her because I look so different from when I went away?" And she just took to it right away. She was not bothered,
Mhm.
and which was a real, for my heart was just like, oh, thank goodness. So I didn't really care what anybody else thought, but of course, as soon as the press
Yeah.
has never been too I read something that I did at the weekend that I didn't actually do, but there you go. But I don't know why they even care. But yeah, so it was the press. They were outside my house. They were following me. I was getting asked, why don't you wear a wig? And I thought, I'm just getting to terms with being bald. So I just want to do it my way. And, they're saying, well, you should just cover it up. And I was like, I'm not covering it up until I just leave me alone. And they'd just be everywhere. And they made the situation so much more worse. And I was so conscious of myself. But I thought, no, I'm going to just keep smiling and keep going. But then after that, um, most of the work that I got was, would you like to come on a morning television program and talk about alopecia? And I was like,
Right.
I don't know about alopecia. And they were going to just come on and discuss it. And so I seem to be wheeled into every program to talk about my feelings. And I was thinking, if I can help someone, that's great. But of course, they didn't pay you to be
Yeah.
guests things. So I was no money was coming in at all. And the money's going out. I've got a daughter and I'm not getting any work in. The people from Dead Famous kept me on, which was really good of them. But I mean, that wasn't enough to
Yeah.
keep a flat and a house and keep my daughter happy. And yeah, so then it all just got worse and worse. And then I just fell down this sort of spiral of just losing my mind for a bit.
I mean, we will talk about the kind of mental health issues because I know everyone listening will kind of that'll be really important. But the employability piece, right? I mean, again, it seems to be that that was maybe a symptom of the time, and that probably now it wouldn't be anywhere near as
Yeah, I would
controversial,
think.
and it wouldn't happen, and it wouldn't be allowed to happen legally, the kind of things
Yeah.
like that, right? But it seems that there's this real kind of change in the last what kind of 20 years, that you have almost kind of had to ride that wave, right? Almost, I mean, you've kind of seen it, in a very high profile kind of position, which you wouldn't wish upon anybody really, and because it's kind of, it's kind of like you know, but you're the other side of it now, right? You've seen it. You can talk with real authority. There's like it's no, hopefully it's not as bad as it is, as kind of as it was back then.
Oh,
Um,
well, great.
yeah,
I'm happy as anything now. So yeah, but you're right. It was a really hard time. But I mean, God, people go through much worse. But I think when you're getting criticized all the time because of the way that you look, and I thought I'm not putting wigs on for anybody. I have got two wigs and I love them.
mm,
But I just wear them out when I want to wear them out. Like a hat. I don't wear
yeah,
hats every single day. It's been sunny at the weekend. I'm not going to go, well, I'm going to wear a woolly hat because I don't want to offend anybody. Unfortunately, this is the way I look and you're just going to have to take it. So yeah, they just did sort of treat me badly. And then I became homeless because money was going out, nothing was coming in. And then I sort of, yeah, it was horrible to see everybody. Uh, well, it was my fault as well because I didn't trust anybody because I wasn't sure. I didn't realize my phone was being hacked. So if I'd say something, I'd see something. It'd be something really banal, but something I'd only maybe said to my mum or to my best friend, and then I didn't want to think that they'd sell a story on me. So I was
yeah.
thinking, what is happening here? I didn't understand what phone hacking was. I had no idea. So I got very inclusive and then didn't ask for help and then ended up just getting myself in a right mess and didn't have enough money to pay the rent. And then if anyone wanted to go for a drink, I'd managed to just have a drink somewhere because it was sort of like numbing out the pain of everything. And then eventually I kind of just had a complete breakdown and ended up getting sectioned by 4 police officers.
And we're not going to dwell on that, right, too much.
Sorry. And good night, kids.
No,
Sleep
no,
well.
well, no, but you've talked in length about that on numerous other kind of in other channels on podcasts and things like that. So, um, you know, needless to say that it was a really difficult time. You kind of went to hell and back, but
Yeah.
there is another side to all that, right? You seem to
Yeah.
have been in the position where you've empowered yourself and you've taken ownership of all of that right now, and
Yeah.
that
Well,
is, that's kind of what you do now, right? There's a whole part of what your life around kind of campaigning around a little bit of this, of talking about this, of opening up about this, which um, it must be kind of a source of pride and help for you to be able to kind of talk and share this now, right?
it is great because I mean, don't get me wrong, I did go down the whole if I didn't have my daughter, there's no point in me being here type of
Yeah.
thing. But I thought I can't do that. I just can't. And I just couldn't see my way out of anything. And then eventually it slowly started to pick up. And then I thought, well, if I can, obviously I'm not an expert in anything, but it's nice to know that someone, people chat to me in the street, and I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do, but they just, I think they want to say, oh, do you know what? I went through that. How did you feel? Is it right? And I say, I don't know right from wrong about feelings and stuff, but it's nice to open up and let people know that they're not on their own. So it's been really an absolute joy to be asked to work with all these lovely charities. And obviously, charities don't pay, and I wouldn't work for them if they did pay. And I've just got to that nice balance. I've got enough little bits of work coming in to keep a roof over my head. I think after being homeless, and then being sectioned. Do you know, when I was doing a comedy tour, I was like, right, hands up who's been sectioned. That was the
Mhm.
opening line. And then the audience would usually go, ah, right, okay. And then there was one time I did a show in Edinburgh. I went, hands up who's been sectioned. This woman went, me. And I went, yay. And she went, 7 times. I went, oh, right. Just go with the ones. Let's go with the ones. But
um, and
once
and
you've
do-
seen, sorry.
and do you still kind of do those are you still kind of
No,
doing a bit of that now?
I did the Edinburgh Festival, so I did the whole 31 days up there 2 years ago, and I loved it. It was just the most, it was terrifying because you're
Yeah.
very vulnerable and you're going to get more criticism from if people don't think you're funny but it was more like a chat. It was kind of like things that you did at school that you'd maybe say to English people and they go, no, I don't believe you did that. But it was nice and everyone got involved and it got really good, lovely ratings. Everyone was really kind. Then I did a year's tour and that went really well and I met some great people. And then I got asked to do Edinburgh this year, but it's just too expensive.
Oh.
It's way too expensive. If you want to try and get some, 'cause when I did it, I had two friends that were on holiday, so I had their flats to look after. But if you try and book somewhere up there, it's just they price themselves out the market.
Yeah.
Really,
Um,
because I love it. That's my home, Edinburgh, but I couldn't afford to work up there.
but this is obviously something that is resonating with people, right? And people obviously are enjoying it. So it feels like there's still a bit of kind of untapped resource there. That must be kind of more that people want to know and talk to you about. And you say if people talk to you on the street about these kinds of issues, that there's definitely an interest there. So it feels, maybe Edinburgh isn't the right kind of place, as you said, but touring it, you write about it kind of very eloquently. You talk about it, and again, I know you're not getting paid for the podcast, and we kind of appreciate it. But there must be kind of it's there must be a way of kind of sharing this kind of just as much and kind of doing more with it, right?
Well, yeah, I do quite a lot of talks in
Yeah.
big companies. So that's sort of money stuff. So if big companies want to talk about inclusion or diversity, again, I'm not an expert, but if they want a story, I love telling things that has happened to me and I like hearing their stories. So I enjoy doing these things. So I've got a few coming up, which is lovely. And so things like that have been great. And then we did Spooked Scotland. So I went to Scotland and looked for more
Hmm.
ghosties, which was really good fun. And in fact, that was on Gogglebox because my neighbour, I'd actually watched it that night, and my neighbour downstairs phoned. She says, Gail, come downstairs. And I thought something had happened, and I went down, and she went, "You're on Gogglebox," and I went, "I've not done anything for ages." And it was the Spooked Scotland thing, and the psychic guy that I worked with was like, we're outside in Arran, it's pouring with rain, we're freezing cold, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, I can remember it, and a branch had fallen down, and I just suddenly lost my shit, and I was like, F this, F, I'm getting a proper job. I'm going back to work in B&Q, effing, effing. And they kept it in. I was like, oh, yeah. It was really cold and tired, but Spook Scotland, they were there for me as well. So, and then other little bits and pieces just started coming, and it's nice. So
Yeah.
it's nice to do my nice, happy, help people stuff. And it's nice to know that I can pay my rent. So that's good.
So what does the future hold then in this then? What's kind of, do you think about that? Is that, do you care about that kind of stuff? Or is it just when
No.
it happens kind of scenario now?
Yeah, I probably should care, but I'm 54 and I'm still around and I'm doing things that make me happy. And I just yeah, I mean I know I've got nice things that are coming up. I'm doing a weekend with Robson Green. He does Weekend Escapes from
Yep.
BBC Two. So we're filming that up in the Cairngorms next month. Can't wait for that. And then I'm doing a panel thing for empowering women, which will be really good. It's going being bold, not bold, not bald,
Yes.
sorry, because I thought being bold, and I was like, how many of us are there? And they were going, no, being bold, and I was like, all right, so I'm doing that on the 30th of April in London, for women to come along to and have a chat about media and their experiences. And yeah, I've got quite a lot of nice little things and trying to buy my flat. And I've been working with loads of different charities, and I'm ambassador for quite a lot, and I'm working a lot with animals as well, which is great.
Brilliant.
So, but
Well,
I don't know. I've written a book. I don't even know if I'd like it.
Is this a novel or is this a biography?
It's a biography, but it's kind of with a little bit extra thrown in from different years. So it's all sort of bits from everywhere. It's a little bit like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but from my point of view. And there's no teeth there or anything like that. But it's just, some of the stuff when you talk about it, or even when I think about it myself, I was going, oh my God, how am I not dead? What? And we have our conversations with our friends. I don't know if you do this, like going, my God, aren't we pleased we didn't have mobile phones in the 90s? We would have been in all sorts of trouble.
Yep. Getting all sorts of trouble now, right? Even if you're a kid now, you're getting all sorts of trouble with them. So yeah.
I just said to my mum, I'm going up to Nicola's around the corner, and we just jump on a bus and go to Amnesia in London somewhere. I'm going raving for the weekend, then go back, and my mum goes, "Did you have a nice time?" We're like, "Oh, yeah."
I think it's that kind of punk spirit, right? I think that is one of the things that I think has endeared you to a lot of people, though, right? That kind of you've kind of kept that going. Gail, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And if anybody wants to know more, we'll kind of include some details and links to bits and pieces. So if anybody wants to know more and support the charities that you support, or wants you to come into their their place of work and do the kind of ED&I kind of stuff, all that we can support with. But Gail Porter, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, because we got through all our technical problems.
We got there eventually.
Exactly. Thank you ever so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the Marketing Rules podcast on Apple, Spotify, and all other major podcasting platforms. I've been your host, James Whitelock, and I hope you can join me and more amazing guests next time.